Hi, everybody, and welcome. It is yet another Friday, and that means it's time for Moohead Radio. As we keep our word to you to continue, we continue broadcasting, and we continue broad chasing too. Needless to say, Roxanne will not be on the program today.
But we chase them.
Yeah, Roxanne will not be on the program today. Let's see. I got
making frauds.
Yeah, broad chasing. Boy, I'll tell you, before coming on the air today, Brian and I were having a conversation about whether things would be opened up here in Florida, and it's funny. We'll talk just a little bit about the virus. I got more sports to talk about today. In Florida, it's a trickier, stickier wicket because we have nursing homes and an extreme advanced elderly population that if this gets into the pipeline, and it has in a number of nursing homes down here, this thing gets spread around and it's killing people. This is, to put it in perspective, in my county right now, there are now 326 cases, and it's going up dramatically compared to what it was just 2 weeks ago. And it's moved up into the predominantly Hispanic and African-American areas. But the rate of testing, as far as, people getting tested, almost 15% of them are testing positive, which is really almost twice as many as in other counties in Florida, including Hillsborough, just north of us in Tampa. So there has been a huge lack of testing in this state, and I'm sure it's that way around the country. But down here, it's really amazing how little testing there is. And now that the testing is only beginning to catch up, what we're really starting to see is the symptomatic people getting tested. And we're seeing 15% positive rates, and we're seeing that rate really climbing in minority communities. It's really not a good thing. So I say, and I know how, and I want to ask a question. We only have Rick and Brian in our panel today, but I don't get something, and I'm not trying to be cute or political, all right? Because first of all, if I were being political, I wouldn't be cute, okay? And second of all, there are things that I legitimately don't understand. And I was asking Brian earlier, you look at the country and you say New York and California, I get it. But Michigan, why is Michigan number 3 in the nation in COVID cases? It doesn't seem to fit the pattern. And then with that asked, Governor Whitmer is taking a tremendous amount of flack in Michigan. And there are massive protests going on within the state. And I, owned a business for 10 years in Michigan. But what I don't understand, and I want to reiterate, I'm not trying to be cute. I'm trying to understand what the rules are to this particular situation we're in. A couple of days ago, President Trump said that he was the one in total charge as far as having the final total say. Well, I think somebody backed him off within his own department, and then he came out a day later and said it's in the hands of the governors. Am I right so far?
Well, it is in the hands of the governors, yes.
Yeah, they got the final word.
They have the final word, and that's what
they are. They are the chief executive people within their states. So.
Right, and so that was what Trump said on the second day. Is that and maybe it was after somebody stepped aside, or maybe and said, "Hey, look, this is the way we operate here." So it is in the hands of the state. So Governor Whitmer has a decision to make as the number 3 state in the country for COVID illness, and decides to lock down. And the people who are protesting this are upset because obviously, they're going broke. I mean, quite frankly, businesses and people are short of money. But what I don't understand is, if given that choice, I guess it is the governor's responsibility to do this, as it is in New York State, and Cuomo was extended New York to May the 15th. So what is the real protest? The people who are protesting are Republicans, okay, right across the board. But the Republican president basically stated only a few days ago that it is in the hands of the governor of the state to determine each state how they deal with this. So what is the larger point of the protest? I'll start with you, Brian. I'm just looking for an explanation.
Well, from what I've been able to read about and watch with interviews and different things, I think it has more to do with all of a sudden not being able to have access to retail shops. And there's a lot of ambiguity in the language, the written language that's handed down to police departments, sheriff department, etc., as to how they deal with the public when they're trying to go get fucking Wendy's or Arby's or something, and or trying to go to a retail store and like a CVS and pick up medications and that kind of thing. And they're still getting, they see what happened in California where some guy is piled into a car and went to 7-Eleven and bought a case of beer. And they each ended up having to pay $1,000 fine over it. And it's like, you can't, there needs to be more static rules where, people know exactly what they can and can't do. And, if it all of a sudden you can't, people are totally sequestered in their house and they can't do things, they can't pay their bills, they can't do a lot of stuff, well, then that becomes a major problem.
All right, Rick, anything that you want to add? It's being the border state to Ohio. What's what are you hearing is the reason? Because I mean, when they're showing national news, there is a hell of a protest going on up in that state. I mean, this is just not a couple of stragglers or hangers on. This is a rather large group of people. What is the situation there?
I'm just wondering if, because at least here where I live, the stores have posted I guess the rules have come down from our governor. X number of people are only allowed in the store. Only one member
Right.
of the family is allowed in. You can't just, empty out the car and what have you. And I just wonder if some guidelines, haven't been made clear maybe in some of the locations up in Michigan. Now, I don't know what because they are ranked number 3 at the moment. Is it because there's a higher senior population in Michigan? That's probably something that has to be determined by the governor. He probably has to get some statistics to find out, all these cases, are they, geared for the seniors? Or, what's the, they may have some hot pockets in that state, and he's got to try and figure out what's causing that. And,
I mean, the thing that's interesting, I don't see this kind of protest going on in New York. All right. I mean, which is seeing pretty much devastation.
But they were the last to kind of really respond. They already experienced the huge explosion. So their contraction is actually like more of a fight or flight visceral reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's interesting how some states are accepting lockdowns and other states are not. And having been in Michigan for almost 10 years, I wish there would have been this much concern when they were shutting the car plants down back when I arrived in 1989, when the Fisher Body plant went down in Flint and subsequently and that put so many people out of work and threw Flint into a tailspin from which it never really fully recovered. I wish that there would have been more protests in the state, and because I can't help but think that affected a group of people who were the pillars of the Flint area, Flint, Saginaw, and Midland, those areas, as well as
majority
the Detroit area.
UAW workers.
Yeah. And I mean, but it affected a lot of people, but I was there during this time. And believe me, there were no protests or anything like that, except workers who were like shocked and couldn't just relocate to Lordstown, Ohio, or wherever at the time. General Motors was trying to relocate them or offering to relocate them. But we're seeing a huge reaction now. So according to Amsterdam in the chat room, Jacksonville beaches are going to be opened by DeSantis. I'll tell you something. Jacksonville is South Georgia. If you've never been to Jacksonville, I have. It is just over the border, and I'm not being insulting as far as culturally. I mean, just over the border. It's no different than the Panhandle. When you go up to Tallahassee and Pensacola and those areas, they refer to it as LA, Lower Alabama, because you're very, very close to the Alabama state line. The death rate in Georgia from this particular virus is double that in other states. And it's something to be aware of, that states that have high minority populations, and Louisiana would be another one of them, seem to be suffering the undue wrath of this particular virus. And a lot of times because people are not covered at all, undercovered, and the access to quality medical care isn't there. But it's a risky move. I've disagreed with DeSantis on a lot of things. I think a formal lockdown should have happened. My club here finally shut down completely, and it took forever. And I don't know how many people, am looking at my zip code, and I wonder how many people would have been spared this situation. And looking at the zip codes around me in Manatee County and also down in Sarasota County, how many people might have been spared had things not come to the beach, had the spring break kids not come to Lido Beach or to Siesta Key or to Bradenton Beach or the other areas. Those beaches weren't closed until well after spring break kids came and went. And that is tied in to unfortunately, a fast rising rate amongst people between the ages of 20 and 40 down here. So I can directly see how people coming to spring break down here affected the numbers negatively. And we're bringing Tony the Calf in here as well. And he's popping in right about now. So be that as it may, that's all I'm going to talk about as far as that. I just wanted clarification because it seems strange that, one state is having this much of an issue with it. But I think, it's the whole thing is becoming, okay, Amsterdam, I'll be on the lookout for you. Amsterdam said he'll jump into the show in a little bit, and I appreciate that. The draft starts getting a little bit more interesting right now, mainly because as we get closer to the unattended or unwatched or, unfinished draft, that player movement, as far as expectations, it changes over time. We have a couple of teams, and it doesn't surprise me, and it starts with the Detroit Lions while we're in Michigan, saying that they're open to trading their number 3 pick in this draft, which is interesting because they had an interest in a cornerback, if you remember. Defensive back was the great weakness. Interesting, there are other defensive backs besides the one they're interested in who are moving up the charts. So it's interesting because the teams that are saying that they would have an interest perhaps in trading, there may be other players than the big names that were being mentioned initially. For example, Florida cornerback CJ Henderson, by some people, is moving up the board, and they're saying, it's possible that he could go top 10. And I've seen this happen before where a guy really shoots up, as far as the draft board in, the weeks prior to the actual draft. The Lions say they would be looking at possibly trading number 3. And now the Giants, Dave Gettleman, the moron, says that he's going to seriously entertain a trade at number 4 in the draft. And that in and of itself is interesting, that 2 teams are going to, in essence, open bid for the number 3 and the number 4 pick. With that in mind, we'll whisk right over to our knowledgeable ones, our panelists, and we'll start with you, Rick. You know, the Lions haven't won in a long time, and the Giants have been heading in the wrong direction for God knows how long. What are they hoping to accomplish? I mean, trading a number 3 or a number 4 pick in this draft, you know, Isaiah Simmons now comes into play for somebody, doesn't he? Because if they're willing to trade, what would they be willing to trade for, do you think? I mean, what would they? I think that they want to drop down to a place like where we are, okay, like to number 10, figuring, hey, a cornerback that we want is going to be there at number 10. I don't know what the Giants really are, you know, are looking for specifically, but it gives the Browns the option of moving up if the price isn't too steep. And I want to add and let you answer now is the continued rumors that the Browns were looking at a possible trade of OBJ and then a 2nd round and a 5th round pick is all the backdrop of this. What do you think about picks number 3, 4? Are either of these teams going to trade it?
I'm having trouble with the trade. I think Detroit, while they're saying that, you know, we're looking for like a defensive back or whatever, I would think they'd want to try and look for, you know, possibly they might be in the mix for looking for a quarterback as well. Stafford had problems with the back last year. He lost, you know, he missed out on 8 games because of, I guess, some broken bones in his back. And while he was out, they went 0-8. So they might be, you know, think about maybe, you know, they may have to find a replacement for him before too long. They were talking about, you know, Tua, bag of ravioli, whatever the hell his last name is. And, half this stuff is probably a smokescreen to try and get somebody to jump or something like that.
Well, the thing that's interesting, Rick, about the Giants in this instance is that, you know, they have just 2 picks among the top 95 in the draft. So, you know, but there's another little thing, and that's that Gettleman has never, in his time as general manager, traded back or down in any draft. But they don't have shit in this draft. They own the 4th overall, but just 2 among the top 95. So maybe getting more picks, you know, but gosh, with the needs of a team like that, I wonder if they're going to do what the Browns did many years ago and try to go for volume.
I think Gettleman's seat is already hot, I think. So he's got to get this one right. And I think what they need to do is probably what the Browns really need to do. They need to find a tackle to protect their quarterback. The last thing they need now that Eli is, you know, ridden off into the sunset, the last thing they want to see is their brand new shiny quarterback flat on his back because they didn't bother to take an offensive tackle in the first round. So
and their left tackle need is almost as big as the Browns.
Right. A lot of people were thinking that they were probably going to be one of the first ones to take a tackle in this year's draft. And, you know, Gettleman's leash is probably about as short as any GM's out there. So he can't afford to mess this up. So I keep thinking that the Giants, they'll be, you know, they might be flapping their gums a little bit, but I can't help but think that they're going to wind up taking a tackle regardless. They got to protect Andy Dimes.
Brian, the specter of OBJ. I mean, if what they're saying is true, that, you know, it was like they were discussing a 2nd and 5th round pick, this is no compensation for a player of that skill level, if that skill level ever reasserts itself, and if the guy really wants to get his head together and actually play football in Cleveland. But I mean, obviously, if he were serious and our offense is improved under Stefanski, OBJ would contribute far more than a second round and a fifth round pick. Well, what about the possibility, Brian, of utilizing OBJ to leverage moving up from number 10 to make sure you get the offensive lineman, or perhaps the linebacker, if you're really going to go after Isaiah Simmons, that sort of thing? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't think that. Well, I've heard from all three, DePodesta, Stefanski, and Andrew Berry, and they've all said no. That's a false rumor. We're not trading OBJ. At the same time, I would say, looking at the depth chart, they can't afford to get rid of Odell at this point, because they just simply don't have quality to replace him. And if Jarvis isn't 100%, well, now you've really shot yourself in the ass, because now you've got third and fourth string receivers out there trying to run into coverage like we saw last year. So I really don't think that there's any chance of that happening. Moving up, I think the cost isn't justified by what you're going to get versus what you can get at 10. Because if your mindset is, okay, we've got 15 players that we consider that a first round sure thing, as close to a sure thing as possible, then staying at 10 guarantees you to get at least one of those players.
All right. Tony, any opinion?
I'm just going to come on the record and saying the OBJ rumors are total bullshit.
I think that, I mean, it would be hard for me to believe that they would do that, especially
why
starting
would
up a new
Minnesota?
offense, yeah.
Well, and from Minnesota's aspect, why would Minnesota, after finally getting rid of the irritant cancer that is Stephon Diggs,
right,
take on more money to get even a bigger irritant cancer that is Odell Beckham Jr.?
I agree with you. I mean, they can't afford that again. And the Browns, honestly, with a whole new offense in place, I don't think they can afford to get rid of what talent they have at the wide receiver position. It doesn't make sense on the surface. The real question here is, when teams open up the possibility of swapping a number 3 or number 4 overall, what they're really telling you is they're looking for something. And I tend to believe the Giants need volume. The Lions, it's hard to understand that organization's just not, they've stayed with their quarterback and paid him an enormous amount of money, and it just hasn't panned out for them. I don't know what they would be looking for.
I'll be honest with you. I don't see many trades happening. With the relative unknown that is this draft, and, teams haven't had a chance to scout anybody. I mean, we're looking at, 6 days from the first round here, and you're not hearing much talk about the draft. You're not hearing, well, this guy looks good, this guy doesn't look good. I think if you're going to see a trade, it's going to be later in the draft, where it's going to amass picks for the next year's draft, when teams, hopefully, God knows how long this, Chinese virus goes, that, teams will have a full draft offseason to scout and all that good stuff. I don't think anything's happening this year.
Well, Tagovailoa, this is hard. Tagovailoa, jeez.
Yeah. 13 on the Wonderlic, by the way, today. 13.
Yep.
Matched his uniform number. Pretty cool.
Triskaidekaphobia.
There you go.
And remind me, because I didn't do very well on the Wonderlic, what was the amazing Teddy Bridgewater low score?
Was it Bridgewater? I thought it was Jamarcus Russell.
It was both Bridgewater and Jamarcus Russell. Who had what was there? I mean, what is considered a good score?
Jamarcus Russell, I think, got a 6.
Yeah, for
on the
some reason I
Wonderlic.
remember Teddy
I would have
Bridgewater.
guessed 5. So I'm trying to remember what their jersey numbers were. I figured that'd probably be close.
So what?
Well,
so
Jamarcus Russell wore 2.
13's a good number.
We have a winner.
13 is just below. I think 15 is average.
Gotcha.
I think
mean,
30 at the high end. I think it's 0 to 30, or is it 0 to 40? I forget, but it's 15
0 to
is kind of
50
like average.
because like Fitzpatrick had a 48. You know, Blaine Gabbert had a 42. So
what does that mean, right? If Blaine
Yeah,
Gabbert
right.
had a 42, what does it mean? But
More
Tagovailoa,
overeducated assholes.
allegedly, he's off 3 draft boards. All right, and watching him play in Alabama, I got to be honest with you, I didn't see this. I didn't see this guy as being the 3rd pick in the NFL draft. I didn't see him as being a top drawer NFL quarterback. Just didn't see it. And now as we get closer to the actual draft, he is dropping like a rock. And a lot of it now they're saying are health concerns and all of that.
yeah,
And I think they're going to be health concerns because he can't work out for anybody. I mean, it's, but I don't know. I think it's more than that.
If you remember Morris Claiborne? He got a 4 on the Wonderlic. So that's
wow.
Which is basically like spelling your name right. Answering the first question and spelling your name right gets you a 4.
Now, the Miami Dolphins, who were looking at the former Alabama quarterback, now are talking Justin Herbert instead. All right, with the number 5 overall pick. Meanwhile, Tagovailoa's agent is saying that he's fully cleared and ready to compete without restrictions. But, he's also had 2 surgeries in the past 2 seasons to repair high ankle sprains. He is a scrambling quarterback, but he's playing for a school that has just got year in, year out, really exceptional offensive line. And I just, I don't know. He's got a lot of courage, but his body wouldn't hold up under the punishment. I just, I don't know. He's dropping like a rock, though. So
right.
Without the physicians being able to examine him because of all that's going on, everybody just sort of had to, just play the waiting game, I guess.
Well, and all they've been able to get are the checkups from the surgeon.
He's had injuries, to both ankles plus the hip.
Well, and he shattered the bone in his hip. He shattered the pelvis. The ball went straight through the wall of the hip. This is not like, oh, well, he just pulled his hip out of socket. No.
He's got a hip pointer. Pointing north.
He blew his hip right out of the socket. So I'm amazed that the kid I'm amazed that the kid can even walk at this point.
Now, D. Podesta saying, we can move up, we can move down. That's the beauty of number 10. The beauty of number 10 is there are chances that the guy you really want will be gone, or there's always the chance you could move up and get a guy that you really, really, really want. And still having the 10 pick, it's still a pretty damn good pick for, especially offensive linemen and that sort of thing. And the Browns may have their eyes on one particular guy, and and it keeps changing as far as I'm concerned. Who's the hot guy now? I mean, it's
like Thomas from Georgia,
Andrew,
or
right,
Becton from Louisville, or worse from Iowa.
And now Andrew Thomas is being pimped as the first one off the board as an offensive tackle. So And that was not the way this draft set up originally. Other types of rumors besides the Dolphins wanting Herbert, both the Falcons and Broncos want to trade up. And this is interesting because they want to get into the top 10. This is where the suitors from below come. The Falcons could get the Jaguars to do something because the Jaguars are so far away from doing anything that trading down would make sense for a beleaguered organization like that. And they could get to number 9 that way. The Broncos could actually deal with the Browns and get Jerry Jeudy, who they're interested in. But, this is where being at number 10, you're going to be getting phone calls and you're going to be making phone calls. So
Amsterdam is requesting the link.
Okay. Let me
Denver might be needing a linebacker too with Von Miller out. You got coronavirus.
He was diagnosed with the corona.
Yeah, I mean, and that is
and he
unfortunate.
has issues with asthma, I believe. So he's got to sort of play it close to the vest, I guess.
I'm just looking here, trying to remember how to get the link while the show is on the air. I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment. Be that as it may, I'm not figuring it out right now. I wish people would just save the goddamn link, to be very honest with you.
Well, if you watch ESPN tonight, you'll get a preview of seeing how this draft is probably going to go down. The WNBA
draft is tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does
Who really
anybody
gives a shit? But
I can't remember how to do this. I'm really very sorry.
It's zoom.us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just sitting here looking at this and saying, I thought there used to be a spot on here where you could invite directly from the program. And instead, I'm not seeing it. So I don't know. It's buried here somewhere, but it's not in the more button. And I thought that's where it was originally. And it's only giving me an option to stop the live stream. So
there's I posted the link, but
yeah, I'm the only one who seemingly can post it into the chat.
So maybe if you copied it and threw it up there, it would work.
Yeah, if I could copy it. Oh, well, where did you put it?
Right in chat.
Ah, okay. Hold on a minute. Hold on.
I'm sandwiched between Daxtar.
Because everything is so delayed on Zoom right now because they're handling such a heavy load of this that it is. All right, I'm going to go into the chat and no, I'm not seeing it. If you put it up into the YouTube
there,
chat,
I just
I see it there.
I just added
Zoom.us /J/518. Oh, it disappeared. Try to guess the last 6 numbers, folks.
Yeah, I can't.
I just put it in the Zoom chat.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that you put it in the other.
Well, I did put it in there first, but if you can't see it, then because like I said, I'm sandwiched right between Daxtar. 2 comments from Daxtar.
Okay, I see. There's my chat, and there was a link. We'll do it this way. This is the easiest way. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate this. And now all I have to do is put that in.
Well, we got to hear from East Florida.
We do. We got to be inclusive here. All right, here we go. There you go. Thanks a lot, Brian. I appreciate
No problem.
it. God almighty.
Those of you out there who thought we use a teleprompter, I hope we've answered your question.
What's really ridiculous is this was there just the other day, and it had me upgrade, and now it's probably located in a completely different location. So it becomes it gets aggravating, to say the least, trying to do all this. I'm switching screens, and it's kind of difficult to do. So the Browns can call, out, or they can wait for the phone to ring. It's not a bad position to be in.
Well, and apparently their IT department has been extremely busy, because they've set it up so that each person, DePodesta, JW, and whoever else, and then Andrew Barry and Stefanski, are all going to have multiple screens set up so that they can talk to each other, and then they can also interact with the league. And going back to Gettleman, apparently he's going to try and do it with a cell phone, his laptop, and an 8-inch binder. So there you go.
Is he going to bring in Kevin Costner to help him too, or?
Yeah, hi, Amsterdam.
I would expect it'll be more like Fred Flintstone.
Hi, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
There he is, sir.
You're looking grungy. That's good.
Yeah,
I like that. Somebody asked me, "Did you get a haircut?" And it's like, no, I just did this Gordon Gekko thing. I just used Axe in my hair and just put it back. So,
Green is good.
Yeah, for lack of a better word.
I did the old shave my own hair thing routine today.
Oh, did you? You just used clippers and just ripped it out?
Took the razor and went right over the head.
So you are a skinhead.
Yes, right now.
Oh, can we see the video on that?
Let's go video.
Oh, I love this. Heil Hitler!
Wow, eyebrows too? Wow.
Where's Count Dankula? Guess the Jews?
Wow, that's really impressive, Tony.
That's good.
In total awe
Tony could
of
be
you.
the mascot for Hormel.
Yeah.
I wanted to switch gears away from the NFL for a minute, and
let me hit him with this one. Now we know what happened to Bobby Hill.
King of the Hill.
Oh boy,
That boy ain't right.
Back to the black.
What little television I've been watching, all right, and it's been damn little because my back has been furiously acting up. It's acting up now. Sitting is not a good thing for me. I keep seeing these goddamn promos for the 10-part Michael Jordan documentary. And, and they've moved this up, obviously. It was supposed to run later, but they have nothing to run. And people are sick and tired of maybe Taiwanese baseball. Maybe they'll broadcast Taiwanese baseball. I don't know what they're going to do. So they're pimping this thing like it's this thing, this cause celebre, and nobody's going to miss the 10-part Michael Jordan documentary. And I don't understand this. To be fair about it, all right, fine. Michael Jordan was the first or second best player in NBA history. All right, I think we'd all agree with that. I don't think I don't think that's open for discussion. That was a great basketball player, but he was a piece of puke as a human being, and still is. And it's one thing. It's like when I see a documentary on Babe Ruth, I wasn't alive during the time of Babe Ruth. So the mystique of the man creeps so far into the stories that it becomes, if I had been alive when Babe Ruth was playing, I'd have been like, no, not quite, But this mystique has taken over for Michael Jordan. He was the first player to be the king of endorsement, that's for sure. But while he was winning championships and being a great basketball player, there were questions about whether he had left, basketball to go to baseball to avoid gambling issues. There were issues about his father having gambling debts that ended up finding him dead in a riverbed. There were stories about his inordinate disdain for players around the league that was exemplified most recently in 2009 when he was brought into the Hall of Fame. When they put him into the Hall of Fame, his speech was pathetic. I mean, at the greatest moment of his life, yes, he's crying, which is fine. I mean, but he didn't pull a Sally Field and say, they like me, they really, really like me, because they don't. They really, really don't. He shit on a bunch of people who were present in the audience for this occasion. You know, George Gervin was there, all right, who presented for David Robinson, the Admiral, and Isaiah Thomas, who presented John Stockton. Well, of course, Michael Jordan called them both out. And of course, Jerry Krause, the Bulls general manager, who he had a running feud with, who he came right out and said was not invited. So in the biggest day and what could have been a softening of his image, he came out and was the same prick he used to be. One other thing that I will never forget is the young LeBron James, who idolized Michael Jordan, as every kid did. I mean, so much so that he wore his number in Cleveland. And as Michael Jordan watched LeBron get better and better and better, a distance grew. And you had to be a Cleveland Cavalier fan back before to know the damage that Michael Jordan did to the Cavaliers in the playoffs. It seemed like year after year after year. Don't ask Craig Elo about it, you know. The shot, right? And how could you let the ball in his hands? You know, I remember just screaming at the TV. It's like, put two fucking men on him. Do something. Don't let him catch the inbounds pass and make a move. And, you know, years later, watching LeBron bury the Bulls with the fadeaway corner three in what would have been a 3-1 lead for the Bulls over the Cavaliers in the playoffs, it was like, wow, things turn around in a lifetime now, don't they? LeBron James always praised Michael Jordan, but Jordan was not warm toward LeBron in the least. And when LeBron finally got to play in front of Michael Jordan, who intentionally never came out to a single game that LeBron James played in Chicago, never showed up until he had to, because he was being honored in the building, and LeBron went off for a huge game, and the embittered Michael Jordan just continued his horseshit. I don't understand. I'm not going to watch a 10-part series about this asshole. He's a great basketball player. What?
He's a douche for sure.
And he hasn't been able to do anything else with his life. God only knows. The Charlotte Hornets? No. So, I mean,
he lives 8 miles from me.
Yeah. I mean, he's just, in my estimation, another guy who was just.
He's got a house in the Biltmore here, too.
Yeah, I mean, he's not afraid to living a very fast car, big house, multiple house, conspicuous consumption lifestyle.
His wife shops with us, and she's equally a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Larry Holmes, the heavyweight champion. Larry Holmes was the bitterest heavyweight champion in the history of the game. And part of it was because, you know, people didn't want to forget Muhammad Ali. And what he beat was not Muhammad Ali. That was, you know, Parkinson's syndrome Muhammad Ali, but he didn't beat the real Muhammad Ali.
The shadow.
And he did get knocked down legitimately by a number of people, including Ernie Shavers. And now I'm going to have to pull the name out of the guy who floored him with a clean right hand, who, oh man, where's my help when I need it? This name will eventually come to me, but he got hurt. He got beat pretty good by Tim Witherspoon, and Don King made sure he got the decision. Then after his career, he turned on Don King, who cheated for him incessantly while he was champion. Larry Holmes just kind of a bitter guy, and he hated Mike Tyson, and he, Michael Jordan's that same kind of guy. He could be the greatest basketball player of all time, and he might damn well be. But would you want to watch a 10-part series on him, Amsterdam?
No, off the court, he is a tremendous douchebag. I mean, he has very little redeeming qualities off the court. I mean, he, like you say, he's a gambling degenerate.
Did most of his gambling in Arizona too.
Lucky for your state, that's great income.
Yeah.
No, because it just went to his buddies.
Yeah, I know. I think he just probably still just golfs and gambles the whole time. I think that's all he does.
Yeah, and I suppose he wears Hanes underwear. Tony, are you going to watch this?
I will, because I've got nothing else to watch.
Nothing better to do. Yeah.
Now that they've taken Fauci off and won't let Fauci roll his eyes behind Trump, there's nothing good else to watch.
I do want to tell you something that another reason why I'm not going to watch is, there's been some stuff leaked about this.
They did show the first 5 minutes where it talked about what was the GM of the team, the 98 Bulls.
Right.
That little pinhead.
Kraus.
Yeah,
Krause.
Krause.
Yeah, Jerry Krause.
Described how much of a douchebag Jerry Krause.
Oh yeah, well, there was a lot of it, and believe me, if it weren't for Jordan, and you saw that the Bulls haven't done dick since, right? So I mean,
Right.
The two Jerrys, Reinsdorf and Krause.
nobody will question Michael Jordan's ability to win, to lead his team to championships, being a great basketball player. Nobody's going to question that. But when I saw that the documentary, that there is somebody who's going to say in the documentary that that had he stuck with it, that Michael Jordan would have made it to the major leagues in baseball. When I heard that, it's like, okay, now we're just going way, way over the fucking line. I mean, this is like I told you, if I were alive during the time of Babe Ruth, and I would say, no, that guy ate 37 hot dogs, he was grossly overweight, and he drank too much, along with all the accomplishments, he was, yes, he had a soft spot for kids, but he was bad news with women. He was bad news with management. He was impossible to manage as a player. He had a massive ego. All of those things, I would have looked at the stuff they say about him today and said, no, this has gone too far. But man, if you never saw Michael Jordan try to play baseball, Rick, why don't you explain to people how Michael Jordan played baseball?
Badly. It just seemed like when he was taking his swings, he was too long. It would take him forever for the bat to get through the strike zone. By the time he got through with the swing, they're already throwing around the horn because that was strike three. And I don't think
he didn't make contact.
His first year, I think he was like batting 203, but he had a bunch of stolen bases. So, probably tried to hang his hat on that, but that didn't go very far. And
I mean, the minor leagues, he barely cracked the Mendoza line. He hit one home run, and the way the ball came off the bat, it barely cleared the fence. He didn't have the bat speed. It's hard for people to understand that there are very few Bo Jacksons in the world. There are very few people who could actually play the game of baseball and the game of football and the game of basketball, because it's a different set of
Sanders
skills.
was the only other one that could do it.
Who?
Deion Sanders.
Deion Sanders. I mean,
yeah.
it takes
go in his own mind.
Yeah, I mean, and nobody's gonna, one thing I can say about Bo Jackson was a certifiable American League All-Star. I mean, this guy, he could play baseball, and it was a shame what happened with his hip and all that. That was too bad.
Bo was awesome in baseball. By far the best dual sport player. By far.
Yeah, way better than Deion Sanders was.
No, Bo in college was tremendous in baseball. He crushed it.
Bo wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of contact in football, unlike
No.
Dion.
Yeah,
But it was
no.
amazing. You know, it's a rarity in a lifetime that you see a guy like Bo Jackson, who I believe could have competed in other sports as well. He just really, and that's just not an ad campaign.
Him and
He-
Herschel, I don't know how good Herschel was. I know Herschel played some other sports, but Herschel was a natural athlete too. But Bo was one of a kind.
I mean, his track and field stuff. I mean, and he wanted to do. I mean, there were just a number of things that he could do.
Herschel
Michael
was actually a pretty good MMA fighter too.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
watched a couple of his MMA fights.
Michael
And
Jordan.
he was a bobsled guy in the
Yeah,
Olympics.
Michael Jordan was a one-trick pony, a great trick at that. He was, you know, arguably the best basketball player in history. But when they start saying, "Oh, he could have made it as a baseball player," then they're going to go Tim Tebow on me. You know,
He
it's
looked
like,
awkward and
Well-
uncomfortable playing baseball.
yeah, it was
Completely
not natural
unnatural.
to him. Yeah,
Completely
but hitting a
unnatural.
round ball with a round stick, you try doing it. I don't know. I urge anybody. Just go to a batting, not now, but when the virus is gone, go to a batting cage and
Although
just
there
try.
won't be any lines now.
Yeah,
Right.
No waiting.
that
Just-
6 feet thing should kick in real easily.
Have that son bitch throw 80 miles an hour at you and see if you
Yeah,
can even
and
catch up to
do
it.
it under pressure.
Yeah, I mean, no. You have to read the spin on the ball too, because there could be any number of pitches coming
Yeah.
at you, as opposed to the batting machine when you know it's just going to throw 80 straight at you. And see if you can get around and square up the ball. It is really hard to do, but you know, Tony's going to watch it. Brian, are you going to watch the Jordan 10-parter?
Not all 10 parts, no. I'm
Rick?
curious about the 85 to 89 years, and then after that, I don't care.
You know, it's interesting. Rick, are you going to watch it?
Probably not. I pretty much know how it ends. And then between that, then having to deal with all of Phil Jackson, his little spiel and books and what have you. And I heard talk that Michael says that he's afraid of this documentary because it's going to portray him as a meanie or a bad guy. Duh. What?
Why don't
were
you
you
do something
expecting?
about it? You know?
Yeah, maybe you should have thought of that while you were busy being mean.
You know, and again, the problem is that the legacy of these athletes. I mean, the ego is so great; the accomplishments really speak for themselves. Nobody really is ever going to supplant Michael Jordan in the sense that he was the first one who really took advantage of the endorsements, had the visibility, and the multiple championships, and in an age, in an era where the game had taken on more of a one-on-one kind of connotation, and he was the unstoppable offensive force, kind of like Kobe became as the game, you know, went down that field even more as far as being a one-on-one as opposed to a 5-on-5 kind of
You know,
game.
Moo, and also, you know, the spinoff of that is him launching Phil Knight and Nike's whole industry.
Yes.
You know,
The first one to have a shoe named after him, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
He's
I
still
mean,
a
it's
top
just
seller, I
huge.
think, isn't he?
Other than Chuck Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. If you're going back, well, Stan Smith was another one, Adidas tennis player. If you were a tennis player back in the 70s, you wore Stan Smiths. Those were the shoes that were, but no, we're talking about shoes that actually sold. So, you know, and yeah, Michael Jordan shoes, that was the deal. I mean, just huge endorsement and just the biggest name in basketball. And of course, in his time, he was just dominant. It's not that I have anything against him, nor do I question his skills or anything like that. I just got done watching a movie called Stan and Ollie. I'm a big Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel fan. Laurel
I
and
saw
Hardy.
that the other day too.
And, you know, the thing that attracted me to the movie was how in the hell they're going to get John C. Reilly to even be Oliver Hardy. And they did a good makeup job on him. And The other thing was that it focused in not on their celebrity in their early years where they were successful, but their later years when they were not. And now those were the unpublicized years of Laurel and Hardy. So I wanted to see how they portrayed that. I've read books about it. So it's an interesting subject matter. I think for people maybe who never saw Michael Jordan play basketball, this would be the greatest thing in the world for everybody to watch. Okay. Because it will give you a consolidated bunch of information. Just remember, try to separate the mystique, from the truth. It's all there on video. You can see what he accomplished in the game of basketball. And I'd like to kind of leave it at that, but man, they're pimping it real hard.
I wanted to mention a story here.
Yeah.
So it's come out now that we never talk soccer on this show, but
Right.
Major League Soccer is discussing drastic wage cuts with players' union up to almost 50% of salaries.
Wow.
Due to the COVID-19. Do you guys see this happening with the other sports?
Well, I mean, they're already talking about this with the NBA. The players are going to receive 25 less in paychecks, 25%.
Yeah,
so
the 15th of May, I believe.
Yes.
Tony, La Liga did it too. Messi and all of them are giving up 70% of their pay.
Yeah, I think those are voluntary though. This is like mandatory.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, keep the league running.
Yeah, I mean,
70% of 40 million's pretty nice.
Pretty good money.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who, of course, are being hit a lot harder than this, whose businesses are just shut down for good. And I really wonder, some of these people that I've done business with, I was just thinking, I ride a recumbent trike, and the recumbent trike shop up in Odessa, Florida, small local business, good guy, Tim Seward. I'll give him a plug.
No, Tim, hi.
Bent Revolution, that's the name of his store. But you really wonder, a guy like that, whether he's going to be able to survive the duration of time out of being shut down like this. It's with such a specialty product as recumbent trikes. It's there are just a lot of people who are going to be affected by this more than athletes,
especially in our state, Moo. Florida is such, a transient and hospitality state that, some of these people are on the edge to start with. And then all of a sudden you drop them with nothing coming in for 3 months. They're fucked.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I want to mention today, something I want to talk about in some detail on the next Moohead radio show is and Tony, I hope you'll be here because I know you're an NBA guy. And
Monday I will not. I go back to work Monday.
All right. Well, that's more important than being on the show.
I will be back next Friday though, if you want to.
All right.
Push it up to next Friday.
The subject matter has to do with the G League getting legitimate college prospects to jump directly from college into the G League. And how this could change the type of coaching that players receive, what type of players they might become in the NBA environment, and if, in fact, the G League is going to become more of a minor league kind of league for the NBA. We've seen two major high school names make this transition, make this jump because of a transfer rule that is in effect. And I imagine we're going to see more. So save this and do your reading up on this, guys, because this is the next big thing that, everyone talks about the NFL draft and things of this nature. We know where the players are coming from in the NFL. We don't know who's going to be great and who's not, but we do know, where they're coming from. We don't always know that in other sports, and especially in the NBA, where the draft is all of 2 rounds, and the second round is really just window dressing. It's not, everyone wants to see what happens in the first 10 picks, and then everyone tunes out in essence. It's going to be interesting to see how the NBA tries to nurture young talent. And maybe
Well, hopefully it does become kind of like the single, double, and AAA baseball.
I would hope so, because I'd like to see them learn how to play the game that's being played at the major league level. And it's not happening right now in college basketball. It's really being coached to a specific way to win in college, but it's not presenting itself as being, a stepping stone toward the way these kids are going to make a living if they're going to make a go of it in the NBA. I like the idea of there being an in-between spot for a number of reasons. One is they get to play more frequently than they do in college. They have to learn to live on the road. They have to learn to do it without big money. They have to listen to people who have been in the league, and, so that, skills will get discussed. We watched KP, Kevin Porter, our young rookie, start getting better as the season progressed. He had 1 year at USC. That was it. And you could see that, the talent is there, but, with Colin Sexton, it's the same thing. The talent is there, but getting them to play the NBA style of play, I think, has in a way been easier for KP because he has a little bit more range and size than it's been for Colin Sexton, who's become a potent offensive weapon, but has no clue yet how to play defense. I think that it's going to be important that we get fewer Andrew Wiggins into the league, guys, and maybe people who are a little bit more well-rounded by the time they come to the team, that they're ready to contribute, as opposed to just, being thrown into a lineup and not having a clue what they're doing. So,
Right.
Well, and this would also be a good league for guys that are coming off major surgeries too, where they can go down there and play rehab games before they rejoin their primary team.
Right. All right, everybody. That's it for this edition of Moohead Radio. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll be back again on Monday, I promise you. And it's always 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we'll have more panelists and more fun on Moohead Radio. Until next time, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads. Good night.
Later.
Bye.